Hello, I'm Isabel Gauvry-LaGrosse.
And I'm Father Dave McElwaines. Welcome to Reel to Reel.
Father, while watching television the other night, I became aware of just how much airtime is devoted to news. We really are a nation of information addicts.
In the past, TV news was limited to 15 minutes in the evening. But now the TV day begins with, is filled with, and ends with news reports.
I guess that's just a sign of the times. Even the coverage of religious events has increased. But the media tends to concentrate on the major events, such as the ordination of Archbishop Foley.
And as a result, some small events are missed, events important to you and to us. And so to fill the gap, we'd like to introduce you to our religious news segment, In the Know, with Rosemary Bruno.
Thank you, Father, and good evening. This morning, Pope John Paul II began his 12-day pastoral visit to Canada by celebrating an open-air Mass at Laval University. The tour will include stops in Quebec, Newfoundland, Ontario, Manitoba, and the Northwest Territory before ending September 20th. The Holy Father continues to voice hope that he'll be allowed to schedule a trip to Soviet-ruled Lithuania in the future. Moscow recently refused to grant permission for him to visit in order to commemorate the 500th anniversary of the death of the country's patron Saint Casimir. The Pope's public acknowledgement of Moscow's denial broke with normal Vatican policy, according to a Vatican source. The first World Pro-Life Caring Conference will convene in Ostend, Belgium, October 2nd. Participants will address the topics of counseling, recruitment, publicity, ethical considerations, and spirituality as they pertain to persons rendering pro-life services to women. The National Conference of Catholic Bishops emphasizes the concept of a consistent life ethic in this year's manual for the 13th annual Respect Life program, which begins October 7th in dioceses, parishes, and schools across the country. The manual states, "The logic of a consistent life ethic applauds all realistic measures on behalf of life, from a constitutional amendment to protect the unborn to positive initiatives taken to achieve arms control." Cardinal Joseph Bernardin, who chairs the Pro-Life Activities Committee, linked opposition to abortion, nuclear war, and capital punishment as a seamless garment that the Church should address together rather than separately. Father Brian Hare, U.S. Catholic Conference Secretary, in a letter released in July and addressed to Representative Leon Panetta of California, called for the federal government to play a positive and active role in feeding the hungry. Panetta is sponsor of the Hunger Relief Act of 1984. The House of Representatives recently passed the USCC-backed legislation, which authorizes a $1.6 billion allocation for additional payments to low-income families through a food stamp bill. 4 lay women and a nun will act as consultants in the drafting process of a pastoral focusing on women in society and the church. The women have degrees in theology, scripture, counseling psychology, philosophy, and black church studies. The pastoral is targeted for completion in 1988. In local news, Archbishop John P. Foley, former editor of the Catholic Standard and Times and a native of Sharon Hill, Pennsylvania, will head the board of directors of the Vatican's new television production center. This follows Archbishop Foley's appointment as president of the Pontifical Commission for Social Communications last May. Cardinal Lawrence J. Sheehan, the 12th Archbishop of Baltimore, died August 26th following several weeks of hospitalization. Cardinal Sheehan, who retired in 1974, was 86 years old. A successor has yet to be named to head the Diocese of Wilmington following the death of Bishop Thomas J. Mardiga last May. Finally, Allentown Central Catholic High School, Philadelphia's West Catholic High School for Boys, and Mercy Vocational High School were 3 out of 60 American non-public schools honored this fall by the U.S. Department of Education as exemplary private schools. I'm Rosemary Bruno for In the Know.
Rose will be back in a few weeks to keep us updated on religious news and events. But now let's switch gears from the factual to the contemplative. Have you ever been in a wide open space like a park or a field and felt so relaxed that you found yourself thinking about God? Capturing that feeling and turning it into a church is what designer and artist Bill Schickel does for a living.
I've been seeking to serve the people of God by creating simple, beautiful places where they can be with each other and with their God.
Bill Schickel is a designer. He works with space and the furnishings and art that embellish that space. His studio is a converted B&O railroad station in Loveland, Ohio.
Before I came to Loveland, I was an assistant to Emil Frey, who is one of the great figures in American stained glass. And Emil Frey had a tremendous effect on me. You might say he was my guide and my mentor as a young man, and I was deeply inspired by him because he set an example of excellence in design. There was another aspect to his influence. He had a daughter, and his daughter was like a magnet for me, and we fell in love and got married and moved here to Loveland, Ohio.
Bill Schickel sees his work as a team effort. Over the years, he and wife Mary raised a large family and became pillars of the Loveland community.
Mary and I moved to Loveland through her association with Grailville. The Grailville Community and Conference Center is part of the Grail, a dynamic, spiritually oriented international association of women. And it provides inspiration and education and direction for women throughout the world. In 1960, the people in Grailville came to me and asked me if I would help them in the redesign of a 150-year-old dairy barn that they had into a place of worship, an oratory. Well, the people at Grailville were revolutionaries and pioneers, really, in the American church for the liturgy. So we worked together and came up with this oratory. And one of the most significant things is that the altar table was put in a configuration where people could surround it and be close to it. That actually was the first time that an environment and an altar had been specifically designed to do that in the United States. It was before Vatican II.
It's been 20 years since Bill renovated this barn into an oratory. Today, he is still creating beautiful and simple places of worship.
Sometimes we get the opportunity to start from scratch, to not renovate, but to build a whole new environment. And the opportunity at St. Columban's was one of those. This is a very close project to me because I've been a member of this parish for 33 years, and our family was raised here, so it was a delightful thing to be able to create a new worship space for the community here. This church needed to seat 700 people, and yet we had a very limited budget. So we used very simple materials, concrete block and exposed wood trusses, all used in a very economical and simple way. You'll notice that even the air conditioning and ventilating system is exposed. It's part of the sculpture of the structure. It is a church that intentionally holds back in terms of richness in materials and environment. But the idea is that the people are necessary to complete it, that the music, the movement, the clothes, the looks on people's faces are really the decoration. So Mary and I came here 35 years ago, and we're still working to create appropriate dwelling places for God and His people.
There's more to come on Reel to Reel. When we return, we'll meet two very different and very special families. So stay with us.
Throughout history, the most important social group has been the family, and we've all been shaped by our family experiences. Well, tonight we'd like to introduce you to a new feature that pays tribute to the family. It's called Family Focus, and it's produced by our own Belle.
Thank you for the plug, Father. With this new feature, we'll be taking a look at some special families in and around our area. Now, you might ask, what makes a family special? Well, they might be doing something as a Christian family that is extraordinary. But a family can also be special in the way that they view their relationships with each other and with God. Come with us now to Cape May Point, New Jersey, and meet a family whose love has bridged the ocean between two worlds. Today we are guests at a birthday party. It is much like any such occasion. Presents, a cake, lots of happy faces. But there's something very special about this celebration. 9 years ago, 3 Vietnamese children who were refugees from the fall of Saigon became members of the McElwaines family. Felice and Frank McElwain and their 5 daughters opened their home and their hearts to young Hung, who is now married and on his own, Thuy, and John.
We had been asked to help the refugees at Indiantown Gap, and the Vietnamese sisters at St. Charles Seminary were helping them, and all of the parishes were asked to sponsor a family and also to bring clothing and aspirin and other things to the sisters for them. So Frank and I got some old clothes together and some aspirin, and we were on our way over to the seminary. And I remember saying to Frank, this is really great. You know, these old clothes that we don't even want anymore. If we were really Christians, we would take someone into our home. When we got to the convent, we were asked.
Sister asked us, you have 5 girls. How would you like 2 boys, 1 girl? We just thought about it for a while, and we didn't think it would ever really come about, but then we made several trips to Indiantown Gap and met John, Thuy, and their brother Hung.
While Frank snapped our pictures for the family album, we asked the children what makes their family special.
I think what makes my family so special is that each of us is so different.
I always get help whenever I need it.
I think the traditions in our family is what makes our family so special.
What makes our family so special is having parents that really care so much.
So big, and there's always someone to talk to if no one's around.
If there's always someone around, how do Frank and Felice find time for each other?
We have always found that it was very, very important to spend time alone together and to work on our relationship. And we've done it. We've made the time. When the children were little, we had to get babysitters, and now that some of them are older, it's easier. But unless our relationship is all together, then we have nothing to give the children. We are very different. I think that we've been a good balance for each other.
I think the basic difference is I'm Irish and she's Italian.
I would say that Frank is my best friend.
Before you can love someone, you have to be friends with that person.
The rewards have been overwhelming. And I think that we're just an ordinary family. Really, we probably have a lot more weaknesses than most families, but God has been so good to us over the years that just, you know, knowing Him and watching Him and His gifts and His providence and His care of the children has been the greatest reward.
The closing song was written by Felice and performed by the entire family. Its title will tell you what the McElwaines are all about: giving. On that note, we're going to take you to Houston and meet a very special father of a unique family.
The Port of Houston, Texas is the 3rd largest in the United States. Over 200,000 seafarers come through this port every year.
There's some people that deliberately prey on foreign seafarers because they know they have no legal rights. So they'll rob them and beat them up. It sounds vicious, and it is, but it's not unusual that many of the ports are not safe. So we try to tell them about that and provide a safe place for them to come.
Every evening, seafarers from around the world seek the friendly services of the Houston International Seamen's Center. Founded by a coalition of churches, businesses, and the Port Commission, the center provides a comfortable atmosphere for relaxation at no cost to the seafarers.
When they get here, they come in the big room and they look around, and some of them head for the store. They want to buy a stamp to send the letter they've written on the ship home. So there's plop it down in front of the widescreen television and see some American production. And they really look forward to coming in because they know the other ships in port where they don't have friends on it. So they'll go to the bar and they'll order a couple of beers and start telling sea stories.
I come here a great deal because I enjoy and like these people. And it's a very nice facility.
Father Rivers Patu leads the center's ecumenical staff of 8 ministers. They visit every ship that docks in the Port of Houston.
We're so glad to have you. Let me give you this. This is from the Seamen's Club, and we're very close. We're right over there on the other side of the shed, and if you'd like to, we'd like to have you come. We're open every day, 10 in the morning till 10 at night. We have the swimming pool and the football and the billiards. It's all free. Very nice. Except if you drink a beer, you have to buy it. Oh.
The center is the largest distributor of foreign language Bibles in the United States. Every evening, a religious service is held for those who wish to attend.
But I would hope they would understand that I'm here to serve them and to help them, and myself, to help us come to the oneness that Christ has asked.
Stay with us for more of Reel to Reel. Coming up, we have the real-life story of a woman of courage in an unreal world. Belle, do you watch soap operas?
Well, no more than 5 or 6 a day. I can't help it, Father. I'm hooked. The characters and the stories become so real to you.
You know, I know a 93-year-old lady who watches them faithfully. She admits that she gossips about the characters, but she says it's not a sin because they're not real.
Well, the characters might not be real, but the actors and actresses who portray them are. And tonight we're going to meet actress Charita Bauer, star of The Guiding Light. She has triumphed over adversity both on and off the set.
The Guiding Light, presented by Downy.
For 34 years, actress Charita Bauer has played the role of matriarch Bert Bauer on the CBS daytime drama The Guiding Light. Her character has been a supportive wife, mother, grandmother, and maternal friend through the melodrama of marriage, divorce, infidelity, murder trials, and of course, family disappearances.
Couldn't you make her understand that that isn't true? We love her. She's part of our family. She's Michael's wife.
After all these months we lied to her, how can we tell her one thing when she heard from Michael's own mouth another?
Well, the question is, what is Julie going to do now?
Well, Michael told you last night. She hasn't changed her mind.
You mean divorce him?
Last November, the character of Bert left the fictional town of Springfield to care for an ailing relative, while in real life, actress Charita Bauer faced a personal medical drama, the amputation of her leg below the knee due to circulatory problems. Shortly after Miss Bauer returned, the actress and the producers agreed to tell her story through Bert, hoping to educate and inspire viewers at home.
Gail Colby, our executive producer, and Pamela Longhammer, our writer, suggested it. they thought it would be a great idea. And at first I thought, oh, gee, that's pretty heavy going. At that time, I was at the rehabilitation center, and I mentioned it to several of the therapists, all of whom were quite marvelous, and some of the patients. And they all reacted with such enthusiasm and were so thrilled at the idea that I changed my viewpoint completely, but completely. I thought, gee, if this helps one person, that would be great. Look, I've lost part of my leg, but I have so much to be thankful for. I didn't lose my whole leg. I didn't lose my life. So please, dear, don't mourn what I've lost. Be grateful that I'm still alive, because I am.
I'm grateful.
Oh, my baby. I love you.
You're gonna make it through this, Mom. We're gonna help you make it through.
Oh, I'm gonna do better than that, honey. I'm gonna walk again. I hope that it will help people who have had amputations realize that they've just lost a leg, not themselves, and that life goes on, and it's still wonderful, and in some ways more wonderful, because you discover resources in yourself, because you have to, and how wonderful so many people can be. Even people you know are wonderful, are even more wonderful. And people you didn't know very well, you find out are just so rich in charity and love and understanding and caring. It's terrific. It really is a very moving experience.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
I'm up. I'm up.
Very good. Excellent. Excellent. How do you feel?
Oh, I'm standing up. It's wonderful.
We've gotten the feeling that what we're doing is successful. What we're trying to present is a positive picture and to be helpful to people, and I think it's succeeding.
Excellent. Very good.
Looking good, Mom.
All right, you got the idea, but look,
What?
don't extend your arms quite so far, only to here. Okay?
A little bit?
Yeah, right. Okay? All right. Go ahead.
Great, Mom. Just great. Come on, come on. Let's go. One more time now. Come on. Something wrong?
No, nothing's wrong.
What's so funny?
Deja vu. Well, it seems like only yesterday when we were in Papa Bauer's living room, and I was doing exactly what you're doing now. I was reaching out to you. You were 11 months old, and I was urging you to take your first tiny wobbly steps.
Surrounded by Puget Sound and Lake Washington, the city of Seattle is known for its numerous bodies of water and lovely landscape. In a town such as this, as much attention is given to life on the water as life on the streets. It's no surprise then to find that Seattle has one of the most effective harbor patrol units in the country. Officer Ted Gormley has been with the Seattle Police Department for 22 years. Although much of that time has been spent on street patrol, he enjoys most his duty with the harbor unit.
When a person calls for you, he needs help, like his boat's sinking or it's turned over or it's on fire, and he's glad to see you. And when in the work I was in before, like patrol work, a person's in trouble, and there's usually some other person that's causing trouble for that person, and a perpetrator of a crime, and then you have to make an arrest in that, and then you're working around things that are less desirable, and you bring it home. And it's hard to separate the two of them. And it's a very depressing thing at times.
The father of 10 children, Gormley tries not to bring his work home with him. However, he realizes that much of his ability to perform out in the field comes from the family strength he receives at home.
What's really important to me is my family, my wife and my children, and having them being around me, and having a full life, because they are there.
But it's this close family love that makes another aspect of Gormley's job more difficult to handle. You see, not all of his time is spent behind the wheel of the police patrol boat. He and a select group of other officers comprise the diving squad of the harbor unit. Although they often dive for missing cars or evidence needed in a homicide case, it is the search for the drowning victim that upsets him most.
The worst part of the job, as far as you say, grisly, would be like recovering a body that's a small child, and the parents are there, and of course they're naturally upset and grieved, and we're right in the middle of it, and that's a very difficult time for us.
Gormley concedes that it's his Catholic faith that helps him deal with the emotional trauma that is so much a part of this job.
It does help me personally, because I know that people live past their physical death, and I think that belief, my partner knows how I feel about it, and so he has this knowledge of that, and then without even saying nothing, I think that sometimes you can communicate that to other people, that that's not the end of it. And I think even people without faith believe that their loved ones live on, at least in their memory, and that they have a form of faith that way themselves, so you can kind of comfort them that way.
Gormley seeks comfort away from his job by working with youngsters. He currently coaches a soccer team and serves as scoutmaster for a Boy Scout troop. But it's his faith and family life that keep him going, through the rough times as well as through the happy ones.
Join us next week as a group of blind children discover the delights of sand and sea.
And we'll meet cowboy and trauma surgeon Dr. Red Duke.
All that and more next week on Reel to Reel.
Good night.
Good night, and praise the Lord.